Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. So today I wanted to record this last little message around unlocking your spiritual gifts. What that really means, what you should be aware of and also cautious of as you go through ascension and you are trying to reach your spiritual goals. Now I say spiritual goals because everybody has something different in mind in terms of what they are trying to achieve spiritually, and what really spirituality means to them. Now, when I personally talk about spirituality, I'm talking about meeting the Creator at the topmost level, where you basically realize that you and God are not different. In fact, God is literally experiencing life through you. So I'm talking about reaching the Most High, who is formless, who is the point or beginning point of all of creation. Now, others who are on a spiritual journey may not necessarily have that in mind. Maybe they're just trying to become more aware of themselves, etc. So this message, even though I'm recording it for the Twin Flame community, could actually apply to anybody on the spiritual journey, but also the light workers, essentially. Okay. But I think the group I'm really trying to lock down on are those that are here, of course, for their own spiritual ascension, but also those who are here as curse breakers. Now, the Twin Flame community specifically is here part of, the curse breakers, because they have, come into their lineage to really help them out. The Twin Flame community is really here mostly on a volunteer basis. They don't need to be here, but they have come down to help humanity to really raise their vibration, for Gaia to be able to raise, her vibration. But also they have come as experienced souls to try and help their lineage break free. In fact, the ancestors in your lineage have really begged and prayed for somebody like you to come along and really help them ascend, break these patterns that they've been stuck in for such a long time, possibly hundreds or thousands of years, and they just don't have a successor that's coming through to really break these chains. So in comes the Twin Flame community, and if you're really listening to this, you may have multiple assignments. You may have, of course, you are trying to be in union with your twin. That's a personal goal for you, but essentially you may be here because you need a physical human body to be able to go to that topmost point of creation. There are, we call them ascended masters, really good wise spirits who have gone before. There are angels that have done real good karma. I've made a video on this as well. You can go check out. But essentially, they're all waiting to reap the benefits of their good karma till they can finally, come down into a human body, do the spiritual ascension work, and then, merge back with Source. You need a physical body to be able to do that. So where are these spirits really operating from? Whether it be your ancestors, your ascended masters, your angels, if you want to call them, they are all operating from the astral realm. And this is kind of important for you to know, to really be able to understand what it is you're trying to achieve on your twin flame journey, because really your twin flame journey is actually just a spiritual journey. So it's really up to you to figure out what it is that you are trying to go after. Maybe you're just here to be in union and that's satisfying to you, but a lot of you probably have come down from the astral realm and have come down to have the opportunity to be able to go back completely, to be able to unite with God, and that's it. That is what you can essentially call not being reborn again in any sort of a form. So if that is you, then you kind of know and have to make your decisions accordingly. But going back to your spiritual gifts, now there is, the reason why I recommend you watching the Two Bodies, One Soul is because in there I talk about how Nothing that you have ever gained spiritually is ever lost. Your knowledge, your information, what you know stays with you. And we take that. So if you've expanded your consciousness to a particular level, when you go through an ascension process, you start meditating, you recall all of that and you pick up where you left off. So nothing you've ever gained is lost. It just carries on with you lifetime over lifetime. Now, with that being said, on your spiritual journey, whether it's, through the igniting of Kundalini, whether you're a spiritual seeker, if you've had a spontaneous awakening, it doesn't matter. But Twin Flame community, it is Kundalini awakening generally. You go through the remembrance of the knowledge and information that you've already had, where it takes people years and years and years, and specifically I'm talking about spiritual seekers. It takes them years to try and really focus in meditation. You go through a Kundalini awakening and all of a sudden, voila, you're able to recall a lot of the things that you need to. This may take 6 months, a year, 2 years. To you, it may be a painful 2 years or more, but if you compare that to spiritual seekers who have spent 10, 15, 20, 30 years trying to, focus in meditation and to be able to actually experience God, you are on a, really fast journey in that regard. Now, with that being said, so one of the ways that you actually remember your spiritual information, gifts that you may have had previously, is based on that remembrance. There is, however, a second part to this, and that actually comes from you unlocking the DNA of your family lineage. Now, most likely, there are people within your family lineage that have had some form of spiritual progress that was very important to them. You could have had healers in the lineage that you have been born into. You could have, medicine women, shamans. You could have, really good writers, mystics, poets. And so what ends up happening is that is still there within your DNA. Now, it may not be a natural gift to you at this point, but as you start ascending on your journey, you may go through a series of tests. You have to, of course, get to certain thresholds to be able to unlock this information. But when you do that, you may find that you now have additional knowledge, additional gifts that have actually been passed down to you in your lineage through your ancestors. They've possibly been waiting for somebody like you to come along, help them break these chains, and almost as a gift, they're passing this down to you. It now is a part of who you are. Now, with that, I would like to say you don't necessarily have to use these gifts. If you have a great-grandfather that was a medicine man, or if you had, a great-grandfather or a great-great-great-grandfather who was a writer, but you don't really necessarily connect with that, you don't necessarily have to use the gift. But it is something that is now available to you as part of possibly your, divine purpose, your divine mission. So you'll really have to see what calls out to you as you move along this journey, because I always say you want to pick something that really calls to you, that's heart-centered, because essentially what you're doing as you're evolving is really breaking away from the fear, from the matrix, from, what society tells you is right or wrong, and go towards, a state of being and living that really, really suits you. The second aspect of that is that when you heal from within and you have divine energy flowing through you, consciousness actually chooses you to do certain things. So if you feel really called to something, then that's something for you to pay attention to and do it accordingly. Like I can share with my own journey, I am not somebody who is fond of being on camera. My entire family will tell you that. But I had a massive calling to make sure that I, shared my experiences, because I was, really guided towards understanding that there was a collective out there that would resonate with the blocks and the challenges that I had on this journey, which would essentially help them move towards their goals and, overcome their obstacles on their journey. So here I am on YouTube, not because this is something I want to do, but because that was my calling and that was what really pulled me towards it. There are other things I've learned about myself naturally that I'm now starting to pull together as well, and using that towards my purpose as well. So everybody's journey is going to be unique to them, and you really have to see what calls out to you. There is a word of caution from my end that I'd like to share, and this is going to hit differently for different people, but I will share that when you are trying to really get to, like, if your spiritual goal is truly to get to the Most High because you want to understand the origin point, you want to come out of the cycles of birth and rebirth, maybe actively engaging with beings from the astral realm wouldn't be the way to go. So I'm going to leave that for you to really understand what that means for you on your journey. But hopefully this makes sense to you in a way that you can really take a look at what your journey is really calling you to do, what really, makes the most sense for you, and really what your spiritual goal is so that you can move forward accordingly. So once again, just to quickly recap what I've kind of shared here is there are various gifts that you may end up unlocking as you move through your ascension and awakening journey. There is probably a massive calling that you have that was destined for you to help other people. It's not always the case. I do know twin flames who, reach that state of awareness where they just wanted to be, and they don't feel they have a calling. They're just present with, and happy with just being. If that may change for them later on, if consciousness calls to them to really, serve a purpose, but, they're not actively out there helping and serving other people just quite yet. So again, you have to take a look at your unique journey, see what calls to you, see what your goal is, and move forward accordingly. I know that over time I have learned a lot of, information about my own ancestors that has really come down. Do I really resonate with all that I got? Not necessarily. And I don't think I'll be using a lot of those gifts that have been passed down to me, but this is going to be different for each and every one of you. Understand that you coming forward to break the chains and patterns that you have is a really, really big deal. But how you move forward on your own independent spiritual journey is going to be different for everyone. And you want to do what looks and feels good to you. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this was helpful. God bless.